This is a self-guided professional learning opportunity that provides step-by-step guidance for a periodic and annual IFSP review using Desi and her family as an example. This professional learning reviews the steps to hold a periodic and annual review and achieve, determine whether a meeting is needed with the periodic review, and reviews the roles of the service coordinator during the periodic and annual reviews. In 2019, Iowa adopted the cross-disciplinary early childhood competencies for professionals from multiple disciplines within early intervention and early childhood special education. Since then, multiple learning opportunities have been offered to faculty in higher education preparation programs from early childhood special education, occupational therapy, physical therapy, and speech-language pathology. In-service professional development trainers and coaches have also been offered learning opportunities. This presentation connects to the following cross-disciplinary competency indicators. From the coordination and collaboration area, collaborates with the family, service providers, and agencies to develop, implement, and monitor an individualized family service plan, or IFSP. From the family-centered practice area, collaborates with the family to identify the family's strengths, needs, concerns, and priorities, and prepares the family to participate and contribute to the development, implementation, and evaluation of their child's IFSP or IEP, including transition options. From the evidence-based intervention area, systematically collects and uses data to monitor child and family progress to revise intervention plans as necessary and document intervention effectiveness. From the professionalism area, uses collaborative consultation practices when working with service providers and families. Click the link in the slides to view the cross-disciplinary early childhood competencies. From the moment the evaluation and assessment process begins, you are building a foundation for early intervention services by establishing partnerships with families and by engaging in a reciprocal process in which you learn about children and their families, and in turn, families begin to learn about early intervention. All early access services are delivered within the Family Guided Routines-Based Intervention Framework, or FGRBI. FGRBI has 4 foundational components: individualized, culturally responsive services, everyday routines, functional participation-based outcomes, and embedded intervention. This presentation focuses on reviewing the information gathered throughout the IFSP process to celebrate progress and adjust outcomes and services if needed at the time of periodic and annual reviews. First, let's review the steps for a periodic review. All of the following steps for the periodic review are outlined in the periodic review flowchart. A review of the IFSP must be conducted every 6 months. When doing the 6-month periodic review, you may or may not modify the IFSP. If the team wants to add, revise, or end an outcome, this can be done anytime between the required 6-month review. A review and meeting are not needed to edit outcomes. Go to the IFSP stepper and click Modify. Answer no when asked if a meeting is needed. If the team, including the family, wants to hold a meeting to discuss the IFSP or make changes to services between the required 6-month review, that can be done by modifying the IFSP anytime by holding a meeting without a review. Go to the IFSP stepper and click Modify. Answer yes when asked if a meeting is needed. Then create a periodic meeting notice. In these cases, the Start Periodic Review is not clicked. Holding a periodic meeting to modify the IFSP earlier than the 6-month periodic review due date does not change the due date of the review. For example, since Desi's annual IFSP meeting was held on March 18th, her periodic review due date is September 18th. However, if the team holds a periodic meeting in May to add a service, that periodic meeting does not change the requirement to do a periodic review by September 18th. There are two ways a service coordinator can start a periodic review and achieve. First, next to the child's name on your case list, click on the Quick Access menu and then select Start Periodic Review. Or click on the child's name from your case list and then click on Start Periodic Review from the quick links on the child's learner management page. Only the service coordinator has the ability to start a periodic review. If the service coordinator does not have the option to click Start Periodic Review, either the child's initial IFSP is still in draft, or a periodic review has already been started and not yet completed. Once a periodic review has been started, there is no way to undo or cancel the starting of a review. A periodic review shows up under IFSP Review, which is shown on the next slide. All other meetings or modifications will show up under IFSP Management. The service coordinator can begin preparing for the periodic review by sending the periodic questionnaire. Consider sending 30 days prior to the review due date. The questionnaire can be answered by providers and the family. It is for all IFSP team members. Responses from providers and the family will help determine if a meeting is needed. If a meeting is needed, this allows time to schedule the meeting and send the IFSP team a meeting notice. To send the questionnaire, do the following. Go to the IFSP stepper, expand the periodic review and the IFSP reviews table. Use the Quick Access menu next to Periodic Review Actions and select Send Periodic Review Questionnaire, or you can print the questionnaire by selecting Print Periodic Review Questionnaire. Based on the information gathered from the team, determine whether a meeting is needed. A meeting is needed when there is a new concern in an area of development, there is a change in service needed, a transition planning meeting is needed, at least 90 days before the child's 3rd birthday. Concerns with progress cannot be addressed by modifying or adding an outcome. Because Desi is older than 2 years, 3 months, the transition stepper is visible, and part of this periodic review will include a meeting with conversation about steps and supports that will help her and her family transition out of early access. Once the periodic review has been started, there are several ways to begin a modification. 1, on the child's IFSP stepper, expand the periodic review that was started on the IFSP reviews table, and then use the Quick Access menu next to the periodic review actions and select Begin Modifications. 2, on the child's IFSP stepper, expand the periodic review that was started on the IFSP reviews table, and then click the blue Add a New Outcome button next to the Outcome Status table. 3, on the child's IFSP stepper, expand the periodic review that was started on the IFSP reviews table, and then expand the Outcome Status table and click on the blue Open IFSP for Modifications button. Or 4, click on the blue Modify button in the IFSP Management table. When modifying a child's IFSP during a periodic review or anytime between a review, the IFSP team does not need to update the present levels of development or the PLOD section of the IFSP. If you begin a modification, you can cancel a modification. To cancel a modification, go to the child's IFSP stepper, click the IFSP View button, and then once in the IFSP, click the Cancel Modification button. Now that the information has been entered for the periodic review, it must be completed. To complete the periodic review and achieve, do the following. First, go to the child's IFSP stepper and expand the periodic review that was started in the IFSP reviews table. Next, you will click on the outcome status heading, and each outcome a child has will be listed. Click on the outcome and then select a status for each outcome. The status options are continue as planned, discontinue this outcome, outcome met, and revise this outcome. Next, you will select a statement describing IFSP modifications. The two options to describe modifications are no concerns and no IFSP modifications needed, or IFSP modifications complete. Or complete the periodic review summary text field. Once required information has been completed, there is a complete periodic review button that will turn blue. Click the button to finish the review. Next, let's review the steps to complete prior to holding the annual IFSP review meeting, as well as how to complete an annual review and determine whether DESE is still eligible for early access services. One goal prior to the annual IFSP meeting is to help the family reflect on services and how their child is doing within their daily routines. The more they can reflect prior to the meeting, the better equipped they will be able to advocate in the meeting. The service coordinator starts the annual review by clicking the option on the child's quick access menu on My Dashboard or from the quick links on their learner management page. Once an annual review has been started but not completed, they will access it via the IFSP development page by clicking on the IFSP stepper from the learner management screen. The current IFSP will be labeled as inactive, and a new active modifying annual IFSP will be added to the IFSP management table. The annual review can be accessed for review by clicking on the IFSP View button. Once the annual review is started, the service coordinator sends the questionnaire to begin gathering input for the annual review. Selecting Send Annual Review Questionnaire automatically emails team members, including the child's family, inviting them to complete the questionnaire. The questionnaire asks for updated information regarding the child's progress and preparation for the annual review. Note that these responses are optional. Once all responses have been recorded, team members have the option to save and close or complete. Save and close will allow for future edits, while complete submits the questionnaire and it cannot be edited. Note that a PDF version of the survey can be printed by clicking on Print Annual Review Questionnaire from the Annual Review Actions Quick Access menu. To review or add additional assessment information as part of the annual review process, select View, Add New Assessment Information from the Quick Access menu. Selecting View, Add New Assessment Information will redirect you to the child's evaluation and assessment page. Tag appropriate developmental areas for any new assessments. When tagging developmental areas, tag multiple together to write more about the functional development rather than picking them all apart. Also remember to base your write-up on the family's priorities. Evaluation and assessment is where you review and update the family interview information for children continuing in early access. Family interview sections to review and update as part of the annual review process include family resources, family priorities, family concerns, and routines. Interview responses can be viewed and edited by clicking on the Expand All button on the Evaluation Assessment Details page. Complete the PEACH for children who are not receiving nutrition services from a dietitian at Child Health Specialty Clinics. And be sure to gather input from the entire team, including the family and anyone else who spends significant time with the child. This is a list of items you may review to inform continued eligibility. Ongoing assessment information, monitoring for progress, service logs, family intervention plans, and questionnaire responses. Part of the annual review includes updating the present levels of development, or the PLOD, and the early childhood outcomes, or ECHO. The team may update the PLOD prior to the meeting and then review it during the meeting to gather input from the family and to include them in the ECHO conversation. The present levels of development, or PLOD accordion, is first in the order on the IFSP modifying page. The Modify button at the top of the section allows you to update PLOD information in the IFSP annual review if needed. When the Modify button has been clicked, you may edit the existing skills and abilities by typing any changes into the provided text field. Any proposed text will appear below the field in a different color, along with the current documented text in black. To modify the comparison to age expectation, click on the Launch ECHO Decision Tree button. The ECHO Decision Tree will open in a new window, and you can complete the chart by clicking on the appropriate responses to the questions. Once the chart is completed, click on the Team Decision ECHO Description accordion below the decision tree. The suggested description will be highlighted green and directly linked to how you answered the questions on the ECHO Decision Tree. Note that you can choose the suggested option or select a different one by clicking the radio button next to the team's choice. Once the team has made the ECHO description decision, click the Save button. The window will close, returning you to the annual review. The new comparison to age expectation will display in a different color below the current documented description. As part of the annual review, you will be required to document the child's continued eligibility. Based on the review of Desi's information, including updates from her family and child care provider, the team determined that additional information was not needed to determine that Desi continues to be eligible for early access. The team will discuss the information in her evaluation assessment stepper, outcome progress, and the PLOD to show she continues to have a 25% delay. The decision that Desi is still eligible for early access services will be discussed during the annual review meeting. However, if an evaluation is needed to determine continued eligibility, a parent consent is required. A blue button will appear to add new consent for early access evaluation. The team will complete the evaluation assessment by entering information on the evaluation assessment details page. Refer to the annual eligibility determination decision flowchart for early intervention, linked in the title of this slide, for more details. Prior to the meeting, send the team, including the family, the PLOD summary and, if appropriate, the draft evaluation assessment report. This provides the team and family time to review for accuracy and prepare questions to discuss in the annual review meeting. Given that all team members, including the family, have received the summary of information ahead of time and the service coordinator has prepared the family for the meeting, all perspectives can be considered and the family is well equipped to advocate for their child during the meeting. In the annual IFSP meeting, review the present levels of development report with the team, which was updated prior to the meeting. Ask the family for feedback on the accuracy of the report and involve them in the ECHO conversation. You are required to update all 3 ECHO areas as part of the annual review. After the plot and echo descriptions are reviewed and updated, review all other information with the family and IFSP team. Ask the family if the information is an accurate description of what's happening right now with their child. If they weren't able to complete the questionnaire prior to the meeting, review those questions in the meeting to gather the family's input. Finally, review the outcomes with the team. Ask the family where they see growth in the outcomes and where else they'd like to see growth. For each outcome, choose the appropriate option related to continuation, completion, or revision of the outcome. When conducting an annual review, it is required to document the current outcome status for each outcome in the child's IFSP. To document the status of the outcomes, click on the Outcome Status heading to open up the section. You will then see more accordions, one for each child and/or family outcome. If you chose Continue as planned, nothing else will need to be done to the outcome. However, choosing any of the other options will not be reflected in the IFSP, and you will need to go to the Outcomes accordion to make the necessary modifications. This is an example of what is displayed in Achieve when an outcome is ended. Note that it is crossed out in the table and has ended in parentheses at the end of the outcome. Because Desi is older than 2 years, 3 months, the transition stepper is visible, and part of this annual review will include a conversation about steps and supports that will help her and her family transition out of early access. There are 2 pathways in the early access transition process for children who are approaching 3 years old. Steps may include preparing the family and child for a transition to special education or other community settings and services. As part of the transition planning process, it is required to document the child's potential eligibility for special education. Under the potentially eligible section, the team will consider and document any circumstances that may lead to involving special education staff by clicking through the steppers: diagnosis of condition, present levels of development, progress in comparison to age expectations, and requires continued intervention. If any one of the 4 areas has a documented yes response, you will be required to record whether the family approves of involving special education staff. In this case, the team did respond yes to present levels of development, and Desi's family is okay with involving special education staff. This conversation occurred prior to the annual meeting, which allowed for the special education staff to join the meeting. After the service coordinator schedules a transition meeting, you can view and print the early access transition plan by clicking on the early access transition plan button. A draft version of the transition plan will open in a new window. Note, if no meeting has been scheduled with transition as a purpose, clicking on the early access transition plan button will result in a temporary red warning modal displaying at the bottom of the screen stating Achieve could not open the output. As a result of the transition planning meeting, the IFSP team documented the conversation about activities that will help Desi's family prepare for the transition from early access. Finally, at the end of the meeting, the service coordinator completes the meeting roll call. Completing it at the end of the meeting ensures that it is accurate. If it was completed at the beginning of the meeting and someone came late, they can't be added later. On the day of a scheduled meeting, or until the roll call has been completed, you can record team member participation in the meeting from the activity accordion by clicking on the meeting roll call button. Note that the meeting roll call button will no longer be available if the roll call has not been completed within 10 days of the scheduled meeting date. To change a participant's attendance status, click on the pull down under the meeting attendance column of the table and choose the appropriate descriptor. You can also add participants who attended that were not on the meeting notice during roll call. Once each team member's attendance status has been updated, the service coordinator can finalize the roll call by clicking the Complete button. Once all the information has been recorded for the annual review, you must provide an annual review summary in the annual review action section of the annual review accordion. When information has been entered, the Complete Annual Review button will become active. Clicking the button will gray out the outcome status and eligibility responses and lock the annual review from future editing. Note that once you finalize the annual review section, you are still required to zero out the incomplete data report and finalize the IFSP modification. This shows a full year of IFSP services that includes a periodic review at 6 months and additional modifications throughout the year that were completed. This shows that a modification was completed as part of the review, but there were other changes made that were separate to address concerns and changes needed to reach desired outcomes. It also shows the date of the initial IFSP and then the date of the annual IFSP. Now let's review the role of the service coordinator and the IFSP team during periodic and annual reviews. The service coordinator starts the reviews in Achieve and sends the questionnaire to the team. They determine whether a meeting is needed for a periodic and schedule the meeting and send the notice. They document the review discussion and decisions and complete the periodic or annual review in Achieve. The rest of the team ensures that progress monitoring and service delivery logs are up to date, complete the review questionnaire, discuss concerns, services, or requests with the service coordinator, determine service and outcome next steps with the family, complete the outcome status, and contribute to the review and revisions of the IFSP. This professional learning reviewed the steps to hold a periodic and annual review and Achieve, how to determine whether a meeting is needed with the periodic review, and the role of the service coordinator and team members during the periodic and annual reviews. Take a few minutes now to pause and reflect on what you have learned. Based on the information in this presentation, what is one thing that surprised you? What 2 questions do you have now? And what 3 things did you learn that you plan to incorporate into your practice? Write down your responses so you can bring them with you to your agency debrief, if applicable. Thank you.